Buying a charming 1970s home sounds like a dream, right? But what if I told you that that dream can be hiding a nightmare, something called concrete cancer? Yes, you heard that right, cancer. The reality of buying an older home isn't always what it seems. Stick around because I'm about to reveal what you might be exposing yourself without even knowing it. Let's go.
No way, you hear me? No way!
I have worked and slaved and suffered for this house every bit as much as you have. Actually more. Because I had to put up with you.
This is ridiculous! You don't even like this house. You never liked it.
I love this house!
So let's jump into point number one, asbestos. One of the biggest surprises I encountered in homes built in 1970s is they are full of asbestos. And it was a material commonly used because of their cost, affordability, easy to source, and of course, easy to put together. It was found in insulation, floor tiles, and even in ceilings. But at the same time, it is incredible hazardous for your health and the health of your loved ones, especially if you have little kids. And the biggest problem is you cannot even remove it yourself. You have to hire a company to come and do it for you. And it's also extremely expensive to do it that way. Most people ended up having to hire these companies to come and do it because it's a very complex process to get it out of your property. The cost can go as low as $10,000 and as high as $50,000 according to what some of people have told me they have to pay. It will create a big dent in your budget. Let's put in those words. So buying a 1970s home, it's a big reason for you to check for asbestos. Some commonly things that diseases, illness that come out of asbestos are the following. Asbestosis, which is a lung condition, a really bad condition of your lungs. Mesothelioma, which is a cancer that affects the layers of the lungs, abdomen and heart. And lung cancer. Long exposure to asbestos can actually give you lung cancer. So it's important to do your due diligence when it comes to this. It was widely used in homes that were built until 1978. So from the early 70s to the 78, most homes should assume have some kind of lead-based paint in their doors, window frames, walls, ceiling, you name it. But lead exposure is extremely dangerous for kids and pets, your little dog, your little cat. Most people have to repaint the entire homes in order to remove the lead-based paint from their properties, which again can be very expensive because you not only need your regular painter, but you're also going to need someone that is certified and has a steep knowledge when it comes to lead-based paint. So if you're buying a house built in the 70s, I guarantee you and bet you $100 that is going to have lead. So have your inspection properly done. But what can you expect from homes when it comes to illnesses? What can you really expect from homes that are built in the 70s, early 70s, and you don't do the proper due diligence when it comes to inspections? Let me tell you, lead poisoning. This is when the amount of lead that accumulates in someone's body, it is higher than the normal levels. And this can lead to a severe illness like abdominal pain, headaches, memory problems, and in some cases, seizures or coma. So be careful, especially with little kids. Anemia is another thing that you can expect from long exposure to lead-based paint. Some of the symptoms might include fatigue, headache, weakness, and pale skin. And neurological disorders is another issue. Long exposure to lead-based paint can cause neurological disorders. So make sure you are also fully aware that you are going to be doing these kind of inspections. And by law, a seller should give you a disclosure to tell you when the house was built. It doesn't matter what state you are located. It's important that you have that disclosure. And if you see the house was built prior to 1978 or the date of construction, the seller is not certain, then you should assume that house may have some lead-based paint. So go ahead and spend the money doing that kind of inspection. Another big issue of 1970 homes, it's plumbing, old plumbing, right? Let's just be honest. By now, it's a 40 plus years property that has really old plumbing. So you have to be very careful with that. Old pipes made of galvanized steel or cast iron were prone to rust and clogging. Over the years, an older house with this kind of pipes most likely will just see a problem that it has to do with leaks all over the place, which again can lead into mold buildup into the property and other health issues. So you have to be very careful. I will say spend the extra money when it comes to the plumbing on an older house, just to make sure that there are going to be no surprises by the time you make the offer. Maybe this is a point where you have to renegotiate the price of the house if you find that the plumbing it's old. Now, you don't necessarily have to replace all of the plumbing at once. It will be ideal, but it also is going to cost you a lot of money. But I think you can start replacing based on sections according to the usage of this. So make sure that you talk to a plumber to give you an idea how much would it cost you to start by sections before you decide to do everything, and maybe get a quote to do all at once. I always tell my clients that an inspection is important, that we understand the pipes, because these are the things that you don't see and sometimes you don't hear, but definitely they can be dripping problems day after day. Please let me know here in the comments that if you have had any issues with your plumbing because of your 1970 homes, let me know what the problem was and what the solution and the potential cost, how much money it cost you to fix those issues. I'm very curious to know how you were able to overcome these things for the people that are, watching this video. So now let's talk about foundation issues. Remember, these are older homes, the way they were built, they're not necessarily the same way that things are doing, and sellers didn't pay attention. There were some times where I have sold houses where the seller says, last time I went to the basement was probably 20 years ago. So they have no clue what's happening. So there can be mold, there can be cracks, there can be big openings that are not like a hairline opening in terms of the width. So you gotta be very careful with that. So ways to know that you should have concerns, as I said, are cracks, uneven floors, and doors that sometimes don't close quite the way they're supposed to be doing, are big indications that there are issues with this. I always tell people, just bring like a coin on a marble, and if you see a floor that is not even, just put it on the floor, and then you'll see, depending where the floor is sloping down, you'll see that marble or the coin just going in that direction. That can be an indication of structural issues. Also, if you see nail pops or like cracks in the drywall, that's again something to be of concern. So you need to indicate when you're doing your inspection the seller to give you a little bit more information on what happens with a potential crack or something along those lines. And if you see these cracks in the basement that have been sealed by the current homeowner, also inquire about those cracks, why they have been sealed, what was the problem that you had over there, how long ago it was. Make sure that your home inspector can have something that is called a thermal gun. They are able to point at a particular wall, structure, and just to see if the levels of humidity are high enough to be of concern, or maybe there are old issues in the past that maybe are not too big of a concern. Regardless, I always ask, go ahead and inquire about these issues, because you better have some of that information with you before you're signing that final release on the home inspection contingency. And now takes me to the point that I made at the beginning, concrete cancer. What is that? It happens when the steel reinforcing bars inside of the concrete start to corrode, leading to expansions, cracking, and weakening of the concrete structure. Very important. It's very common in older homes, especially these ones that I'm referring to, built in around the 1970s. Pay attention to areas with high humidity will make these beams corrode, and that's when you start to see that concrete cancer. So it is important that if you find some of this concrete cancer, you bring in a structural engineer with you at the time of the home inspection, or maybe after the inspection. Give yourself enough time to inspect the structure of the property you're buying, so that a structural engineer can give you a plan of action on how you can correct these problems. I guarantee you they are going to be very expensive, but you either want to buy that house knowing what the problems are, and maybe the seller will give you a credit, or you just say goodbye to the house and just go and find another property. I think at the end of the day, you want to have peace of mind. I guarantee you that. Of course, costly repairs. And if you decide to do that, this can also be very, very difficult to do. And addressing these kind of expenses is going to cost you a lot of money. So make sure that maybe you want to adjust the sales price of the house if you're going to take on a project like this one, because this is a house that you want to have because of the location, proximity to friends, family members, parents, you name it. This is something that if you want to have it and you need to have it, make sure you build this into the sales price or receive a credit. Now be careful, because if you're receiving a credit, there's certain loan programs that have restrictions in terms of how much amount of credit the seller can give you back at the time of closing. And the last point is electrical systems. Many of the homes built in the 1970s were not built to handle the amount of electricity that most homes demand nowadays. Back days, parents didn't have routers. They didn't have many TVs in the properties. They didn't have computers. So now entertainment centers, a hot tub outside, a jacuzzi inside the property. So now a lot of these properties now cannot handle the amount of electricity, which can sometimes lead to overheating and some other problems. And let's not forget the outdated wiring, like aluminum wiring, can be a hazardous problem. There are also many times where the entire panel box it's on a recall list because there has been other problems. So make sure your inspector is well aware and versed in the type of electric panels that maybe are in the recall list and some that are no longer being manufactured, and maybe you need to budget for an upgrade when it comes to an electrical panel. Now, let's talk about the aluminum wiring. It's a very interesting thing because you have to be very careful with that. The problem with aluminum wiring is it tends to expand more than copper. Nowadays, people use copper, but back then, aluminum is what was the normal, and that tends to expand. It's softer than copper, and that it's one of the biggest problems, which can lead to a loose connection, overheating, and potential fire hazards. You see, as I mentioned before, panels that are no longer up to current codes and standards are also a big concern. Some of the brands that I have seen many times is Federal Pacific and Zinsco are well known for having safety issues. Upgrading to one of these newer panels definitely will give you some peace of mind for you and your loved ones. So Copalum, it is a system that is well known in the area and among all the electricians and professional people that handle these things. And this can actually save you a little bit of money, and it's still very effective. Let me explain what it is. This is basically when at the end of a wiring, of aluminum wiring, there is a connection, a proper nut that is made of copper. And this is less invasive, meaning you don't have to destroy a lot of the drywall. And it is done at the level of light switches, plugs, and any other things that you need. Something like this, it can probably cost you as low as $3,000 and as high as $6,000 to $7,000, depending on the size of the property and how many outlets and switches. So this is very affordable. Now, if you want to do an entire full rewiring, just the rewiring alone can start at $10,000. I heard some people go up to $25,000. That's not counting that they're going to be destroying a lot of drywall. So that means you have to install drywall, you have to repaint some of those areas. So it definitely becomes very expensive, and you have to be fully aware of this additional cost. And that's it. That wraps the entire, all these things that are going from asbestos to difficult electrical wiring, the homes that cannot handle any of the demand of electricity in our homes. I am Robert Garcia, and I am here to guide you through this raw real estate market in a smart and simplified way. If you like video like this, content like this, please do me a favor, give it a like and thumbs up. I will really appreciate if you do that. And I promise every week I'll bring you some content just like this. Hey, let me know here in the comments if you bought a house with electrical issues, especially a house that has aluminum wiring. I want to know what kind of solution you went for. Did you go for the Copalum that is more affordable, or did you go for the full rewiring of your house? I'll be curious to know how much money you spent on this. Please drop a comment right here.